You don't need friends. You need power. And you already know this truth even if you have been running from it. Because every time you surround yourself with noise, jokes, validation, and comfort, there's a quiet part of you that feels weaker, distracted, delayed, like potential is leaking out of your life minute by minute. And you pretend that connection is strength, when in reality, it's fear of standing alone with what you could become. Because you've noticed it, haven't you? The people who want to hang around the most are never the ones building anything serious. They're the ones killing time, numbing ambition, laughing at discipline, calling obsession unhealthy so they don't have to face their own limits. And you play along because being alone feels uncomfortable, because silence forces you to hear your own thoughts, your own excuses, your own wasted chances. So you trade power for company and call it balance, but stay with this until the end, because by the time this message finishes, you'll understand why cutting noise was the exact moment your life started changing. Why every great transformation begins with separation, not applause. Look closely at what passes as friendship for most people, and you'll see the illusion clearly. Endless talking with no direction, emotional dependence disguised as loyalty. Group approval replacing personal standards, hours spent reacting instead of building, and you feel it when you're honest, how your focus dissolves, how your routines collapse, how your edge dulls, not because anyone is evil, but because ambition demands sacrifice, and most people are terrified of the cost. So they anchor themselves to comfort and drag anyone ambitious back down to their level, slowly, casually, with jokes, distractions, and invitations that seem harmless but steal your time, your energy, your sharpness until months pass and nothing has changed except your hunger getting quieter. Then something shifts, not in a dramatic moment, but in a controlled realization. A calm anger when it finally becomes clear that power doesn't grow in crowds, it grows in isolation, in repetition, in silence, in the hours nobody sees and nobody claps for. And ambition wakes up not as rage but as clarity, the understanding that if you want extraordinary outcomes, you cannot live ordinary social patterns. That this isn't about hating people, it's about choosing priority, because power requires separation, the way fire requires oxygen, and comfort suffocates it. Loneliness stops feeling like a punishment and starts revealing itself as training, because in solitude there's no performance, no validation, no emotional crutches, only work, reflection, and execution, day after day, and you begin to see why those chasing mastery move differently, speak less, disappear for long periods, and come back sharper, heavier, dangerous in a quiet way, because silence strips weakness and forces growth. It confronts laziness, excuses, emotional impulses, and replaces them with discipline, structure, and self-trust built through action. That old version of you, the one who needed company to stay motivated, who needed encouragement, who needed to feel supported to move forward. That version has to die, completely. No ceremony, no goodbye, because dependence is weakness and power cannot grow there. So it's cut away, along with the need to explain yourself, the need to be understood, the need to be liked, and what replaces it is discipline, not excitement, consistency, not hype, control, not expression. Training happens when motivation is absent. Skills are built when nobody is watching. Emotions are mastered instead of released. Long-term dominance is chosen over short-term pleasure again and again. And this is where real self-improvement lives. Not in quotes or conversations, but in repetitive execution that compounds silently into power. You enter a phase where words feel unnecessary, where you stop announcing goals and start preparing relentlessly, where your presence becomes heavier because it's backed by substance, and people sense it without you saying a word, because silence backed by discipline is intimidating. It signals self-control, standards, direction, and you no longer chase connection for reassurance. You chase mastery out of respect for what you could become. By the end, the hunger isn't to belong. It's to dominate your own limits. And quitting doesn't feel like failure anymore. It feels like betrayal. Because this path isn't loud, it isn't social, it isn't popular, but it's real. And once you commit to power, there's no going back to weakness disguised as friendship. Because the moment you choose mastery over noise, discipline over comfort, solitude over validation, you stop needing people to feel complete, and you start becoming someone people feel around. Without explanation, without approval, without turning back. You don't need friends when the vision gets heavy, because friends ask questions, and power demands silence. And somewhere between the laughter, the messages, the late nights wasted talking about nothing, ambition quietly suffocates, and you feel it, but you ignore it. Because being alone scares you more than being average, and that is the trap. Because greatness has never been crowded, and power has never been built in noise. And deep down you already know this. You feel it every time distraction steals another hour, every time comfort delays another session, every time you choose company over commitment. And the truth is brutal, ruthless, unforgiving, but clean. Isolation is not punishment, it is preparation. And the moment that realization hits, everything changes, because loneliness stops feeling empty and starts feeling purposeful. Silence stops feeling awkward and starts feeling sharp, and you stop asking who understands you and start asking who you are becoming. And the answer is never found in approval. It is forged in repetition, in discipline, in nights where nobody checks on you, in mornings where nobody praises you. Only the work is there, waiting, judging, demanding consistency. And this is where most people break, because they want progress with witnesses, effort with applause, sacrifice with understanding. But power doesn't negotiate like that. Power doesn't explain itself. Power is built when emotions are controlled, when excuses are cut, when habits replace hype, when routines run even on days motivation dies. And that's when the old self starts to burn. The version that needed company, the version that needed encouragement, the version that needed reassurance. That version cannot survive here. It is too soft, too dependent, too loud. So it fades, slowly, painfully, but necessarily. And in its place stands something quieter, heavier, more dangerous. Someone who trains when tired, learns when bored, works when unseen, and stays consistent when nobody is watching. Because attention is no longer the goal. Mastery is. And as this happens, emotions stop driving decisions. Discipline takes the wheel, focus narrows, standards rise, and suddenly the world feels different, smaller, slower. Because while others socialize, you compound. While others seek comfort, you sharpen. While others explain themselves, you execute. And this is why power looks lonely from the outside. Because the work doesn't leave room for noise, and ambition doesn't ask for permission, and eventually something shifts permanently. You no longer crave validation, you no longer fear isolation, you no longer worry about being misunderstood. Because being understood was never the mission, becoming undenia. Blay was. And now the path is clear, narrow, unforgiving, but honest. Built on sacrifice, repetition, restraint, and relentless execution. And the vow becomes unbreakable, not spoken out loud, not posted, not announced, but lived daily in silence. That nothing will pull you back into weakness, that comfort will no longer distract you, that emotions will no longer control you, that friends are optional, but discipline is not, that power is not a statement but a lifestyle. And from this point forward, quitting is not an option, because quitting would mean betraying the version of yourself that survived the isolation, endured the silence, and chose mastery over everything else.